Greetings, this is Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I have drifted into the underworld. The Star Wars underworld. I have a bad feeling about this.
Here we go. We must go to the lower levels. The underworld.
You've taken your first step into a larger world.
You're after something.
Ben.
Since I've started the underworld, I've met so many great friends.
Chris.
I grew up in the 1990s, and mall packaging is nostalgic for me.
Dominic.
What I love most about Star Wars is that it's fun and it's all-round good times.
So, this is where the fun begins.
May the Force be with us.
This thing really moves!
Whoa! I like this!
I can't believe you came all this way to see me.
What's up, Star Wars fans? Welcome back to another episode of the Star Wars Underworld podcast. We are your source for the latest breaking Star Wars news, reviews, and discussion each and every week. And this week on the show, we're going to be talking about the latest episode of Andor, One Way Out. Super excited to talk about this very hyped episode. My name is Chris. Joining me is my good friend, Mr. Dominic Jones.
Hello, Chris. Hello, Ben. Hello, Hannah. Hello, everybody. Yeah, what another just exciting week of Andor. A really thrilling, terrific, heart-wrenching, heartbreaking, stirring, exciting, inspiring, wonderful week of Andor. It almost makes me forget that there was a crap ton of news as well this week with the cast of The Acolyte. Shout out to them. Rumors of a new Star Wars director, which is pretty cool. Studio Ghibli and Lucasfilm are partnering on something, I heard. All sorts of crazy stuff. And I look forward to talking about none of it this week because this episode of Andor was so good and so dense. So I don't think we'll get to it next week or the week after because we got a 2-part finale spread over those next 2 weeks of Andor. So see you December 1st, cast of The Acolyte. That's when we'll talk about you because you're pretty exciting too. But yeah, I cannot wait to talk about Andor. It's going to be a great show.
I feel like we're going to have to do a 24-hour stream on December 1st. We're just going to have to we're going to have to break down into shifts. You know, each of us is going to be podcasting for 6 hours.
An article per person.
Yeah, just have to go through all the news for the last 3 months.
And then on November 21st, we got the news that just rolls on.
Ryan Johnson trilogy has a name. It's happening again.
Weirdly, it's called the Knives Out trilogy for some reason. I don't know why they've just stolen that. They're trying to build off the excitement. I don't know. Glass Onion, a Star Wars story. Yeah.
Save it out. Let's go. Great
so
game.
Good.
We're so down for that. Also joining us, it's Ben Hart, the Star Wars guy.
How's it going, everybody? Yeah, we don't have time for anything else. Like literally, we have to jump into this episode as soon as possible and cover as much of it as we possibly can. And we won't discuss nearly all of it in the next 2 hours. So it's going to be a fun one, guys.
Oh my gosh, yes. We almost had the other Ben Hunter Star Wars guy join us. Like, we were this close. I was like, what was going to happen? Is it going to happen?
Almost. No. There's an excellent freeze
Howdy,
y'all.
We're going to talk about some Andor.
Oh, see, Andor. What about Sir Benjamin? How is he feeling about the about Andor these days?
Hello, mates. Yes, I love me some Andor.
Andor.
Yes, quite.
Oh my god.
I want some Andor.
Jolly good, I say.
Oh my god!
Right, enough of that. Okay, we have important stuff to do.
Important things.
That's right. Also joining us, it's Hannah from the Raeside.
G'day there. It's going to be a good show. I had a very, very high enjoyment level of this episode, but I also have a very, very high confusion level with this episode. So hopefully we can, I'm going to ask some questions and we can, maybe I can figure some things out. But yeah, no, great episode. Really, really fun. Probably, I'm already going to spoil. It's like my favorite of the season so far. I think it was really, really epic. But yeah, it's going to be a good day, good discussion.
This is also an educational podcast, so this will work out. Right?
This is a TED Talk. It's actually a TED Talk.
Are we an educational podcast? Yes, there are sometimes I feel like feel like it's a de-education podcast. I feel like
You have to balance it out. You have to
some
out
episodes
to
might
make
be a
space for
little
more.
educational. Some episodes you might lose IQ points.
I
So
feel,
you
yeah,
really, it's really
I
kind
feel
of
like we
a lot.
lose brain cells sometimes.
Yeah, I feel like that's. I mean,
You gotta make room for more when you learn.
Is
I
that
guess so.
how that works?
You
Is
only
that-
have so much space unless you're Kiadi Mundi. You only have so much space.
Yeah, just
Is some extra space up there under that hood, under that glorious hood. But,
Don't bring it up.
Yeah.
Don't bring it up.
You would think he would be the smartest Jedi because he has the tallest brain, but
But he's
alas.
not, is he? He's not. He's
doesn't use
the
it. He only uses 5% of
one.
his brains.
There you go.
All right. So we'll get to the education in a minute, or the miseducation.
Will we?
We don't know which one it is going to be yet.
Real quick, make sure you subscribe. Please super chat with us if you're watching us live. If not, you can become a channel member and also support us that way. Please give us a review on any podcast apps that you're listening to us on. And don't forget to join the SWU Network Discord. The link is in the description of our YouTube video. Let's get right to it.
This link is also in the description on your podcast feeds as well. Just throw that out there as well.
To get more subscribers. We can't let Hannah pass us in subscribers.
I don't know. I think we have to start doing more cooking on this show and more painting and all that stuff. Maybe we'll stand a chance. Maybe we'll stand
Just
a
doing
chance.
one show a week and just talking is just not enough anymore for the YouTube algorithm. You got to do it all.
Here I thought you would have been supportive, but instead you're Mars Guoing and you're Sebulba as you throw a spanner into my pod racer
I didn't mean
engine.
to say we were going to be taking subscribers away from you. I'm just saying that we need to keep up here.
Oh no!
My goodness. All right, let's
good stuff.
talk about Andor. Andor season 1, episode 10. 10 One Way Out. Written by Beau Willimont and directed by Toby Haynes. Huge episode. The prison break, the one we've been waiting for. And Ben, this week, we're not going to throw to you first.
Yes.
We're going to throw to me first.
Oh.
Because I really just want to take a chance here. No, I just, this episode is absolutely incredible. And what I realized in watching it is it made me realize something about a moment in The Rise of Skywalker that I always liked on paper, but felt weird in the movie itself. And that's at the end of the film during the Battle of Exegol. When all hope seems to be lost, Poe is feeling down, he's feeling out. And Lando shows up with that fleet of made up entirely of ships from all around the galaxy. And he has that line, "There's more of us, Poe. There's more of us." And I love that moment on paper. And there's great bits of the execution. The music is fantastic. Billy D is just Billy D in it all over the place. He's incredible. But the moment itself kind of feels a little flat to me in the story. And I've always kind of wondered, how do you do it? How do you make it better? How do you make that moment better? And this episode is how you do that, sort of story. Because even though I don't think he ever actually says the line, "There's more of us." That's the sort of subtext through everything that Andy Serkis says in his incredible speech to all the inmates of the prison. There's more of us. And it's that moment of realization that, power, in a lot of ways, it's a bit of an illusion. There's the line from, I think it's from Littlefinger on Game of Thrones. Power lies where men believe it lies. If throughout those first 2 episodes, we see how the inmates are made to fear the guards, fear the Empire, fear everything. They're meant to be afraid for their lives, and so they're willing to go along with this scheme of the Empire. And in this episode, they have the realization. Once they've realized that it's all a lie, that they're not ever getting out, they have the realization that there's more of them. There's more prisoners. And it's ultimately what happens throughout the galaxy. We've talked a little bit about the show being a microcosm for everything else in the Star Wars galaxy. I think it's true more so this week than any other. And, the Star Wars has always flirted with this idea a little bit. Anakin says to his mother in episode 1, you say that the biggest problem in this galaxy is that nobody helps each other. And all through those first 2 episodes, Kino, Loy, and most of the prisoners, they're just looking out for number 1. They're looking out for each other. They're looking out for themselves. They're not thinking about each other. And as soon as they started thinking as a group, as soon as they started thinking as a collective, well, they got out of there. Most of them. Some of them died in the process. But they died giving it all for something real, which is what this show ultimately is all about. So I will also fast forward and say I'm going to give this episode a 10 out of 10. But I loved it. I loved how it took this idea that's been in Star Wars but never quite executed the way I want to see it, and paid it off beautifully. All right, Ben, I'm now going to throw it to you second for your initial impressions on this episode.
Way to throw me off there. Yeah, agree with everything you just said and more. Also, while you were talking, I was thinking back to the season 4 opener of Clone Wars, the Mon Cala arc, and they get to the end of the arc. They're like, there's more of us. There's more prisoners than there is, people holding us hostage. So, they rise up, and it's a running theme in Star Wars now. So, Ed, it goes without saying, this is probably the best episode of the series so far. One of the best episodes of TV I've ever seen, and definitely one of the best episodes of Star Wars TV, bar none. I want to say, it's firing on all cylinders. No. It's like it's gone. It just crossed the finish line with 50 yards between the second place winner. Like, this episode did so much time, and did that analogy even make sense?
I'm not sure it did, but I think I know what you mean.
So he's between.
It was a runaway.
It was my head.
It was a runaway victory. Somebody finished, and the person who was in second was 50 yards behind them. Is what you're saying?
I shouldn't have called attention to it. No one would have noticed it.
Okay.
Remember when we said the show was educational?
Yeah.
It's actually a big math show.
Never mind my stupid analogies. This was a runaway hit, in my opinion. This episode was great. Why this episode works so well is that I think, obviously, we have these arcs, these payoffs, these mini, finales, if you will, every 3 episodes that were really given a release of, whatever, and given something really is satisfying. Aldani did that excellently with the 6th episode. And I still rank that one very high on my list too. But the fact of the matter is that episode, as much as I loved it, it was not joyful. It was a very dark episode. This episode, as many dark things happened, as many characters that I cared about died, and there was really, overarching thing. It felt like there was a light at the end of the tunnel. After last week's episode, which so dark, so just everything coming down on our characters, the darkest Star Wars we've ever seen. Now we're seeing something that's truly uplifting, both in just thematics and also literally characters coming out into the daylight and jumping free. Like, it's not subtle by any means. But that's what I took from this episode, is the fact that it's so much fun to watch, on top of being incredibly acted, shot, written, everything. It also just is so much fun. It's a fun episode that also gets you teary-eyed and gets you thrilled at the same time.
That it does. Hannah, what about you? Your initial impressions of One Way Out?
Yeah, I really enjoyed the suspense built in this episode, and I think everything that makes a good, film, show, episode, whatever, I think all those elements came together: the scoring, the acting, the pacing, the the dialogue, like I think everything really came together for this episode really, really well. And I think that's been the strength of this show, is all those production elements for me. I've kind of had my own subjective things of like, oh, I wish we had more of this, less of this kind of thing. But in terms of the production, like this is just so good. And we've said it all, like the whole season, but this episode was really that pinnacle of excellent production. But yeah, the actual storyline, you really feel the rallying and I really felt, as Kino's giving that speech and we're getting all this like kind of montage of all these different levels and groups of men trying to break out. Like I was like ready to like stand up and like run out the door as well. I was like, oh my God, let's just go. Like, it was really like, it just gets you going and you really kind of rallied with them and, you understood their drive to get out there. And it's fascinating what fear can do for people. And, I think that was a really interesting of how they ended the last episode of, they realize they're never getting out and they're just going to kill them off anyway. And there's no hope of anything. It's just all fear. But, how Cassian specifically, but how Cassian kind of started becoming a bit of a leader, even though Kino was kind of the leader to the other men. I think subliminally, Cassian was the leader to all the people kind of encouraging to use their fear, use your fear of being here to we're going to break out. We're going to do this together, which is just such a pertinent kind of concept and notion. And I think it was really, really emotive and just something that really resonated with me about this episode. I don't have like any other complaints with the episode, but I do wish we got a little bit more of the Mon Mothma things. And I have a bit of an issue with like, I wish we had more of her throughout the whole season, because I feel like even now we're in episode 10, but I'm still like, wait, what's her thing again? Like when we see her scenes, like I love her so much. I just wish we had a bit more context into what's happening. And, I'm still trying to piece together the whole money thing. And like the charity, and she's using this guy Davo to get the money, and it's a little interesting. I just wish we had a little bit more context on that, but yeah, overall loved this episode.
Yeah, I will definitely get into what's going on in the Mon Mothma plot, because it's taking a turn I wasn't expecting. It's very interesting. We'll see. We'll see where it winds up from there. Chris, what about you? Your overall thoughts on episode 10?
I don't think we've ever seen anything like this in Star Wars before. I think this is completely new territory for the depth of what we just saw. I mean, George Lucas, when Star Wars began, he made it very grand. It's about these archetypes that have been around in storytelling for thousands and thousands of years. And as a result of that, it was relatable as kind of like a substrate to the entire population. And that's one of the reasons why Star Wars is so popular. But Star Wars tends to not be very microcosmic. It tends to not be microcosmic or microscopic. It doesn't really look at the minutia of the human experience very often. It's about the kind of grand movements in humanity and the commonalities between our psyches. And what this show has done, and what it did in climax in this episode, was it showed us the human experience in the minutia that was strongly relatable and visceral, at a level that I don't feel like Star Wars has ever done before at any point. And that's why I think it's absolutely incredible. I mean, there was 3 moments in this episode that were climactic in a way that we're just not used to seeing. We're used to seeing climax be in like an epic duel between 2 or multiple characters, or something getting blown up, something very big getting blown up. Like that's typically what we see in Star Wars. And one of these sequences was an action sequence, but it wasn't the action itself that was the climax. The 3 moments that were incredible with the 3 storylines in this episode is, as we were just talking about, the moment with Kino and Andy Serkis's just absolutely incredible acting, where you saw, you know, him go from someone who's out for himself to then someone who has to be a leader for everybody else in just a short time span, and him dealing with that. And you see his character developing right in front of your eyes so rapidly, and just the acting of portraying that was absolutely incredible, and the energy that built to psychologically. And then you had the moment with Mon Mothma where you really realize why they've been spending so much time doing certain things in her arc, because we've kind of been asking the question, like, why are we seeing so much of her family? Why are we seeing so much of her daughter? And it's been kind of confusing up until this point why that's been the role that she's been playing, instead of seeing her kind of more directly doing things with the rebellion. And that moment where she's presented with the option, well, you can ruin your daughter's life for the rebellion. That then kind of was a really climactic moment to kind of realize what her character was made up of. And I think that having all that domesticity really made that a lot more strong than it would have been if that those plots hadn't been developed. So I think that was a pretty interesting, incredible moment. And then the end of the episode with Luthen, we've been asking this question for weeks, like, you know, who is this guy? Like, he's doing, and is he really a good guy? Like, you know, he's fighting for the right side, but the things that he's doing are so incredibly questionable. He's so morally and ethically questionable. And we were trying to figure out, you know, what's going on here, and to kind of have someone directly ask him about that, and have him from his soul talk about what the things he's doing are doing to him, and how that is the sacrifice that he's giving to be the villain so everybody else can be a hero. Like, I was just, I could not believe, you know, how amazing that writing and that performance was, to hear something so kind of visceral from the perspective of a person in Star Wars. It's just not something that, you know, we usually have the time to get to. There's a lot of relational stuff in Star Wars, like, you were my brother, Anakin. Like, it's hard to beat stuff like that. The stuff with Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen in both Obi-Wan Kenobi and Revenge of the Sith, absolutely amazing. There's some moments in there. There's moments with Mark Hamill, you know, at points, but it very much, again, it's about the relationships. It's very not often about just someone in their own relationship with themselves, and to see that, it was absolutely incredible and absolutely groundbreaking for Star Wars. So yeah, this episode just shows the capability of the writing and the performances of this show, and the direction of this show, and how it's able to carry things where you don't even need the action, you don't even need the plot, you need none of that stuff. When you add it, it's just a bonus. It just adds to it. It just makes it even better. But really, the core of this show is the human experience, and showing that at a deep, microscopic, microcosmic level, and that's just absolutely incredible. So I'm not going to spoil my score, but it's going to be very high.
Yeah, I feel like what Andor has done as a show is it's managed to pick up on the stuff that has always been hinted at and alluded to in other Star Wars storytelling. We'll maybe leave the publishing aside, because that's a completely different medium with completely different expectations. But if we look at what's gone on screen, this show feels like it's taking all the things that is hinted at, alluded to, but there isn't time for, that doesn't fit in an epic, which is what the Skywalker saga and the Mandalorian and a lot of these other stories are. And it's saying, all right, let's explore them. Let's take an on the ground look at Star Wars. What does it actually mean to be part of the Rebel Alliance? What does the Empire actually do to be so evil, aside from, you know, blowing up planets and all that? And what does it take for people to rise up? Well, what does it take for people to realize that you can't live a good, honest life in the Empire? You either have to, you know, join the Empire, in which case you have to be kind of cutthroat, and, you know, if you want to rise through the ranks, or you just have to keep taking it from the Empire. And when they do that, you never actually get anything. They change the number of shifts you have left that you have to keep working at the Death Star factory, or you get down to 0. They transfer you to another. They say we're letting you go, but actually they transfer you to another prison. They break your spirit, break your soul, and you eventually you reach a point where you either you break or you push back, and that's what we see in this episode. Let's talk about the prison break, that plot line in this episode, which makes up the bulk of it. Let's start with Kino Loy, Andy Serkis, as everybody has said, and just a masterful performance. Hannah, I'll throw this to you. What did you make of Kino's evolution through this episode and his relationship with Cassian?
I think this was such a well-written relationship between those two particularly. And his character arc makes sense that, it makes sense he kind of where he starts and where we see him at the end of the episode. I found this idea that he doesn't know really how to lead. He knew how to be this manager, but when it came to that kind of crux where they had taken the bridge and he had to make this speech and kind of inspire everyone, I found that so interesting that he was just kind of at a loss for words, maybe didn't have the confidence. I found that such an interesting concept to show. And he really kind of depended on like Cassian, and I think a lot of what Lino kind of. Wait, I just called him. Wait, what's his name? Is it Kino or Lino? I forget which one's the real one now.
Kino.
I called him Lino.
Or it could be Lino Coy. We could.
Lino Coy.
Yeah, right. Oh my jeez. Oh God, I said it with full confidence too. In that scene, he's really looking at Cassian as inspiration, as trying to recall what they had discussed, and I think. Yeah, seeing his character, he's of the rule book. He's just trying to get through the days and, keep your mouth shut, like just get on with your shift, being of that mentality. And then I think it's such a perfect storyline of being confronted with the reality of, hopelessness. You'll never get out here, but we're going to die here, and how that turns him around. And I like at the start of the episode, I found it a bit like, I don't know, it was a little bit corny or something for me, but when he like had that tussle with Cassian, that was really random too. And they're just like just shoving each other. It was like, that was random. Okay.
Let's have
that. Right?
It was a little bit
like
of
energy.
Yeah, that was sort of the most melodramatic moment. It was like a soap opera fight between those two.
Yes, it was so. I found it so odd, but not in a bad way. I was just like, oh, that was funny. That was a bit weird. But I think that I really liked that element because it kind of shows that they're really in this high intensity, like they have to get out today or like they'll never get out kind of thing. I think in that kind of situation when it's just fight or flight, like you can just like randomly like start, beefing with someone, just over the high emotions, high stakes of a situation. But I love his character. I think it's really awesome to see the whole like community of Star Wars fans really be like, this is the coolest character we've ever seen. Like, we love this guy. Like, I haven't seen anyone say anything negative about him. And I think rightfully so. I think, obviously, yeah, Andy's performance of this character is spot on. But I think also just the character, it's really interesting to see, this big, the manager, he's strong worded, his voice commands his men, to see him have kind of quite vulnerable moments during this period. And then should we talk about the can he swim moment yet? I don't know. But I'll leave that to a little bit later. But yeah, very much enjoyed him.
Yeah, there's a moment right before he starts speaking into the microphone. There's just this look on Andy Serkis's face that communicates how much turmoil he's sort of facing, how stressful he finds this moment. and then you see him overcome it, and it's all done before he even starts speaking. It's all in this look that Andy Serkis gives. And, Andy Serkis, everybody thinks of him as the mocap guy, and he's done so much to pioneer that technology. But man, oh man, he is so much more. You couldn't do what he did in that world if you weren't already a great actor just to begin with. Mm-hmm. You need that level of performance to come through the animation, and he does it brilliantly, whether he's got dots on his face or whether he doesn't. It's just beautiful stuff. Ben, what did you think of Kino Loy's arc through these, through all 3 of these episodes?
Yeah, I mean, it's a fascinating one and a heartbreaking one too. I mean, at the end of the day, his whole line, I can't swim, and you're just like, what? And it's like, yeah, that would be an issue with jumping, off of thing, and it's the whole theme. The whole episode really revolves around sacrifice. The whole theme of this episode is sacrifice. It's, what is Mon Mothma? Is Mon Mothma going to sacrifice her daughter for the rebellion? What is Yoon's thing, and how much is he sacrificing? He's questioning Luthen about how much he's sacrificing, and then you have Kino getting up to the thing, doing all this to get up and perhaps sacrificing himself just so all these other guys can get out. And that runs through all the Star Wars. Cassian sacrifices himself to do something to save the galaxy, a galaxy he does not get to enjoy when it is all said and done, free of the Empire. So it's really powerful stuff. And, Kino's story is one that we see, it's kind of the micro version of what we're seeing in the grand scheme of things for Cassian over this entire season. And it's one that's, heartbreaking, just like the fact that he's such not a true believer in the Empire, but a believer in the system. When he first walks in, when Cassian's there, and she's like, okay, you do this and you better be on time and do your job. And you don't screw this up for me. I'm going to be out of here in such and such days and blah, blah, blah. And that just starting to erode away. And Andor is just giving it his all, and doing just one of the best performances in Star Wars to date, showing the erosion of that confidence and coming to the point where he's like, no more, we're done. And we're going to do this. And, even in this episode, you have that great first scene where he's like, he's not bought into it yet. And then he gets up to the microphone. And naturally, it's like when you're on a podcast, which some of us have experienced, and someone says, say something. You're like, what do I say? I don't know what to say. You're just caught in the moment. And he's just overwhelmed by the moment of like, I finally have what I want. Now what do I do with it? And it's just powerful. As you said, the acting is just superb.
Yeah. You hit on something there, Ben. He's not a believer in the Empire necessarily, but he believes in a sort of a just galaxy. He believes in a fair galaxy. You do the crime, you do the time, but then you get back out there, you can go live your life. And the moment of realization that we talked about so much last week is, comes in the previous episode when Olaf dies from his stroke, and the doctor tells him, this isn't a just galaxy. You don't get out. You've done a crime, and now you're going to pay for it literally for the rest of your life. And as we saw with Cassian, the crime you did may well have been being in the wrong place at the wrong time and having an overzealous shore trooper say, hey, I don't like the way you're looking at me. You must be part of the trouble. You're part of the trouble. You're part of it. Throw him in front of the judge, give him 6 years, and then keep extending those 6 years until we've built all 18 of our Death Stars or whatever they're doing down there.
I've just got to jump in with a thought, and I wanted to see if anyone else thought this at the start of the episode, where it's called One Way Out, and they're talking about escape. We've got to do it now. And we get the scene, which kind of ties into the end of last episode of Olaf being, in the body bag, gets zipped up, poor Olaf, and he gets, carted out. And it was like, as we saw that scene, I think it was just before, just after, or even during is when the line is said of, well, there's only one way out. Did anyone else think we were going to get that Clone Wars arc where Obi-Wan is undercover and he goes into prison as undercover, and then they have to escape? They escaped in the the coffins,
the crematorium.
I thought that's what they were. Yeah, I thought that's what they were inferring in this episode. They're looking at Olaf in the body bag, and they're like, "There's one way out." And I'm like, "Oh my god, are they all going to pretend to die? And they all have to get carted out, and then they'll unzip their bags and be like, let's go."
It's like when you have a supply teacher at school, and everybody decides, "Well, we're all going to fall out of our seats at the same time, but they're all going to be there working," and then all of a sudden, 3, 2, 1. Everybody on the ground. What?
Wow, you really committed to that.
Yeah.
I thought you were really going.
I'm going down. Yeah. Yeah, well, it's interesting. They keep saying there's one way out, there's one way out, one way out. I mean, really, there's 2 ways out. You either die or you escape. There's 2 ways out. But for the purposes of, you have to think about it as there's only one way out.
Yeah.
The only way you're getting out, the only way you're getting alive is to.
There's one way. There's one way out alive.
Yeah.
And that, they're the one reason
that isn't quite as good a chant. One way out alive. One way out alive. Doesn't quite have the same as one way out. One way out.
But their whole thing in here was one way out. The one way out is to do your job, do your task, work together, and you'll eventually be free, and it's fine. That's the one way out. Then they actually realize that there's only one way out is to freaking fight back and take them down. That's literally the only way, because you're not getting out if you're otherwise.
Yeah. Yeah. There's, Kino has the great line, what happens next, what we do, it depends on all of us. And, it's they have that choice. You have that choice, and it's not a choice. It's live or die. That's you either try and escape now, or you stay here and die. Well, as Cassian and Kino say throughout the episode, they know what they're choosing.
And I love his thing. I love his little line about, if you see someone confused, help them, get them moving. And it flies in the face of what he was saying 2 episodes ago, which is basically every man for himself, working together, but I'm working for me. You're going to help me get out of here. I don't care about you. I'm just focused on getting my number down so I can get out of here. And, the lovely thing about, this moment is they all have to work together. They can't do this without the other person.
Yeah. Well, and again, it's another sort of moment of people taking what they learned from the Empire and applying it to the Empire's downfall. This is, Cassian says to Kino, you do this every day. You tell people what to do every day. People listen to you. People respect you. You're a respected voice. Now use it for something real. Use it to escape to fight back against the Empire rather than in service of the Empire.
Mm-hmm.
Chris, what are your thoughts on what we've been talking about?
I agree with all of you. I think that that's very great takes. And I guess one thing that I'll add is, it starts even before, the character shifting starts even before the moment before the microphone, because you also have in the cells when Cassian's first telling everybody about what's going on, and then there's all these shots of him alone in his cell just listening and thinking. And I thought that was very brilliantly done too, because you can see that's the moment when he really decides, okay, we're going to do this thing. That's when the real change is at that moment. And they show a lot, there's a lot of expression in the performance there too from Andy. And just that moment where it just builds and builds and builds, and then he shouts, "No one is getting out," and then he talks there. I thought that was another good example of, again, that same thing in that moment. So that was extremely well done as well.
Yeah, and you sort of see the realization that in that moment, I think, is when Cassian realizes, oh, this is the key to making this work is this guy. Because everybody listens to him. Because Cassian goes in there and starts saying things, and people, don't really necessarily believe him or don't know if they should believe him. Because Cassian, he's been a little bit of a troublemaker since he got there. I think I kind of get that vibe that he's hanging out with Melchi and the other guy, and those are the guys that are stirring up trouble. And if you hang out with those guys, you get zapped by the floor a few more times than if you stay away from them. So people aren't necessarily believing him. But as soon as Kino speaks, everybody knows he's telling the truth. He's earned that respect. Even though he earned it through, working these people to death, essentially. He didn't realize that's what he was doing, but that's what the Empire was doing. It's interesting. Sticking with Cassian though, it's kind of interesting. Cassian's the guy who inspires everybody, right? Like Kino is the one who. Leads the uprising, leads the sort of the revolution. It's his voice that spurs people to action. But he doesn't get there without Cassian sort of poking him and jabbing him and saying, "Come on, you can do better. You can do better. They need you. You gotta. This is your moment." I sort of thought that was interesting, and it sort of speaks to Cassian as a leader that he doesn't need to be the face of the mission. He doesn't need to be the face of the rebellion. He just needs to be. He just wants to see it happen. He can inspire the person who inspires the people. And I just thought that was such an interesting depiction of leadership.
Yeah.
In Star Wars,
I feel like Luthen's kind of similar as well in that regard. Like he's not the face. We never knew this guy existed yet. He's doing so much and putting so much at stake to make it happen. And I don't know. I think. Like for me personally, I think that's one of the greatest marks of leadership is knowing when other people can actually lead better than you can. And it's kind of almost like the best thing I can come up with is like a sports analogy that I know only some people will get, so I'll apologize. But in basketball, there's a specific position called point guard, and it's not their job to score points. They're not going to take all the glory and just grab the ball and score, put it in the hoop and score a bunch of points. It's their job to determine who on their team is in the best position to score, and then they're supposed to give them the ball, and then that person is supposed to score the points. And while there is a stat, assists out there, ultimately when you think of the greatest basketball players, it's not the point guards, it's people that are actually scoring the points. But really the point guard is the most important person on every team, and you don't have a championship team unless your point guard is one of the best, because they enable everybody else. And I feel like that's what Luthen's doing, that's what Cassian's doing, is like they're figuring out, okay, who are the people who can take this thing all the way. And then they're getting them in the position that they need to, and passing it off and giving them that push. And that is so incredibly important. So I think that the nuance and complexity of the show is so amazing that it recognizes it. It's not necessarily about the people that are winning the big battles, as we usually see in Star Wars, or defeating the big enemies. It's about the people that are making decisions on a daily basis to further the cause and to put other people in the right position. And that's absolutely incredible.
Yeah. It's
great leaders inspire greatness in others.
Yes.
Oh, wow. You were sitting on that one. That was a good one.
Ambush, the first episode, the very first episode.
Yeah, that's right. It's about Yoda and how the Jedi, how they treat the clones is not robots, but future leaders to be developed. And I think that's incredible.
And it's so true with Cassian. With Cassian, he gives Kino the lines. Kino starts reciting the stuff that he said to him earlier. He does the same thing with Jyn. Michael Wilson actually pointed out in the chat that Cassian is the one that has the line "Rebellions are built on hope." He gives Jyn that line.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, yeah. It's like we were saying off the top. The the films focus on, focus on a set of heroes, and we thought, oh yeah, these are the heroes of the rebellion, Luke, Han, and Leia. Those are the guys. Those are the top three. And in a sense, yes, very much so. But Luke, Han, Leia don't get where they are without Jyn, Cassian, Luthen, Mon Mothma, and you could even make a case. Someone like Kino Loy, who doesn't make it out of this. He leads one uprising to get all the people out of prison on this one planet. But you think that everyone who escaped that prison is just going to go, well, escape prison, going to live a nice, happy life in the Empire. It would be great. Nah, I think he just inspired a whole new generation of rebels who escaped. And we see that on a sort of a micro level with Melchi. I mean, Melchi gets out of there, and Melchi was kind of with Cassian. He was a bit of a what disturber when he was in there, but he winds up playing a pretty important role in Scarif as well, in the Battle of Scarif as well. He's sort of just in the second tier after the main heroes of Rogue One. It's like there's Jyn, Cassian, Cassian, Chirrut, Baze, Bodhi, K2, and then you get to like Melchi and Pow and all those other guys who are fighting the battle alongside him. Hannah, what'd you think of Cassian in all of this and his role as inspirer of the inspirer?
Yeah, I think what we're saying here is so right in that comparison to how we saw him in Rogue One. He was very much he wasn't the hero, but he was such a hard worker to keep it all together and keep inspiring people like that. And it was so cool to see that in these episodes, and to be that almost like that voice, that you kind of have that voice in your head, and it's either negative or positive, and sometimes it's that positive voice that's just like, keep going, keep pushing. Like, it's almost like that was Cassian in this episode for Kino, but for also so many. I loved the scenes where they would like run. They were breaking out. They were going through the halls and the different levels and where they should go. And Cassian kept like running into people and being like, "Oh, you go," but they wouldn't ever exchange words. Like, he would run into Melchi and they would just be like, "Yeah, just like run away." And I'm like, that's so cool. And like, I like how they had a plan, but they also didn't really have a plan. I found that really interesting. I think Cassian is this perfect depiction of how you don't have to be the one that's speaking in front of a crowd to be a leader. You can do it in a lot more subtle ways, but just as influential and inspiring ways. But yeah, it's a good. I think this is a really interesting facet to Cassian's character. The early episodes of this season, I maybe have been lacking that a bit. I wish it was a little bit more Cassian dense, perhaps. I don't know. Or just the stories I felt like could be a bit more focused on him. But I felt like we really got this in these couple of episodes. I've really felt. I don't know. I'm just finding myself a lot more invested in his story and how he's feeling and trying to gauge what he's thinking at this time. I think this episode was really a pinnacle for that.
It's really a slow burn because I mean, in a sense, like we're at like episode 3 of this show, really, because like there's arcs, and these arcs are essentially one kind of whole episode, and each character really only has about an episode's worth of material in each arc because there's so many characters that are in all of them. So you just look at the scenes with Cassian, it's really only, it's only so much time that we've had with him so far. So it's really, you're getting to that point with a lot of the character stories now where you're starting to really understand what's going on with them, because, it's just that you're getting to that point where there's been that many stories with them and that much time with them because there's been so much going on and they've been so slow paced at everything.
Mm-hmm. It's true. It's true. Okay. Kino Loy can't swim. The tragic twist at the end of this. It's being pointed. Yeah. It's being pointed out.
I like the way he says it. I'm sorry, you go.
Oh yeah, no, it's a good moment. It's a good moment. It's being pointed out in the chat that like he did this whole episode, he did this whole prison break, knowing all along he can't swim, he can't get out. He's not. unless he thought there's maybe a ship they could steal or something. But he sort of knew that they're on a water planet. There's no way out. Do we think there's any hope? That he could have survived this in some way? Or
there's no body. He's still alive.
Ben, have you got your sticker handy nearby? There, just preemptively, always preemptively, in case anybody starts thinking that he's gets captured by the Empire. Yeah, if he got recaptured by the Empire, and
this thing's just always in my pocket. You know, what I mean?
Anybody's
so I thought Kino Lloyd. No,
yeah,
never know.
If you're thinking that there's some way that Kino Lloyd becomes Snoke,
up in smoke.
Snoke him if you got him. If you think there's any chance, read the sticker. Your Snoke theory sucks. Hannah, I don't like that look on
Give
your
me
face.
a sticker. Give me a sticker. We brought this up as a joke when we first met Kino.
Mm-hmm.
There's like 1% of me that's like, they could pull it off. They could pull off how he becomes Snoke. That could be a thing. That could so be a thing.
They take him, they recapture him, they take him back to the lab. They take him to Exegol. They start mixing his DNA with Palpatine's, and voila!
First they gotta stop him off on Navarro for the Mandalorian because with that shot.
You gotta connect all
in
the
a jar.
Yeah.
Then he goes to Mount Tantus. And then
maybe he has Snoke in a jar. Maybe his life began with Snoke in a jail. Who knows? But yeah, poor Kino. Great twist. I will say, I think that's the only plot spoiler for Andor that's leaked this entire season. Because I read that last week where it was like, there's going to be a plot point where Kino can't swim. I was like, that's interesting. I wonder how they're going to get around that. I didn't realize it was going to be the plot point, the end of his character journey, that he can't swim. I hope there's a way they can bring him back. I hope the's a way he can survive that.
How great would it be in season 2? He shows up and he's just there and he's on Yavin and he's a general. Like, come on.
Would be good. But
I would take the negative route. I worry that we're gonna see him again, but like he's caught by all the guards still left on the base, the complex thing, and they're gonna just like torture him and ask him all these questions. Who helped you? And then I don't know. Maybe that's how. Because again, in the whole grand scheme of this season, like, are they gonna is Deirdre gonna catch up to Cassian at some point? And I can't. And if that's gonna happen by the end of the season, how will that happen? So it's like, is Kino going to be some sort of a, similar to Bix somehow, like he kind of gets tortured and then somehow starts to say, and then they line it up that it's the same person. Because Cassian uses a different name. What's his fake name in this episode? Keith or something?
Keith, yeah.
Keith Girdgo.
Keith. That's too close to Grief Karga.
Maybe that's where he got it
It's
from.
it's like the exact same, just like it's like the same name but with an accent. It's like Keith Karga, Grief Karga. No, what's his last name?
I think he should have just gone with Keith with a TH. Just stuck with that. It's a classic.
That's so true.
We do have a character in this episode named Lonnie, so Keith isn't that far off.
That's true.
I will say, I feel like if this were a different Star Wars show, it'd be kind of 50-50 on whether he survived. With Andor, it feels more in line with the world that Andor has established, that he's gonna die.
That makes sense.
He's dying he's sacrificing himself in service of the rebellion. He's kind of like he's sort of the opposite of Nemec from the previous arc, where Nemec was this true believer who was fighting for sort of ideological reasons, and then he died before he could see his ideology through. Kino is the guy who wasn't a believer. He didn't have any sort of ideology. Like we said, he wanted to keep his head down and just live day to day, and he wasn't able to in the Empire. So he had to fight back. And along those same lines, it sort of feels like it's fitting that, he became this leader. He inspired all of these other people to do what he couldn't do himself. And I feel like the swimming is kind of an allegory or a metaphor for him as a leader in general. He couldn't be he couldn't fight. He couldn't be the guy sort of standing up to the Empire for so long all through this episode. But he could inspire up until this episode, excuse me. But he could inspire others to do that. And so he can't swim away, but he can inspire everybody else to get out there and live his life. So it feels more in line with what Andor has established for him to be dead and to stay dead. But then again, who knows? This is ultimately
he could inspire
it's all fiction.
others
They can
to swim, but not himself.
Well, I was just gonna say, along those lines, like, Andy Serkis, you can't have him continuing making episodes of Andor because he's got to be Snoke and Ryan Johnson's trilogies.
Oh man, great stuff. And then Cassian and Melchi running away at the end there.
Okay, so here's the thing. Nice. I understand why we only see two of them at the end when there's hundreds of them at the beginning, because I had a very similar experience this summer where I swam for the first time in like 5 years, and I had forgotten how hard it is to swim.
Oh man.
Yeah, I was just like,
are you okay?
I don't know if I'm gonna make it. Like, dang, this is hard.
Yeah, they really needed some floaties when everybody was escaping. You need some water
Right?
wings and some life jackets, something to.
That is.
You could have taken a cushion with you, like on the airplane or something.
The little light and a little whistle.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
How far away was land?
That's
what I want.
That's when I saw that, because initially I forgot that there was land. I don't know if the establishing shots showed it or not when they were first going in, but initially I was like, wait a minute, where are they even going to do when they get out? Like, where are they going to go? They're in the middle of an ocean. And then they showed there was land like way off there, and I'm like, okay, not a lot of these people are going to make it there. That is far. Like, I could barely make it. Like, I don't even know how far it was. Like 100 feet or something. Like 30 meters is like, that's far. Like, gosh, if these people haven't, if they're not fit, I don't know.
Man. I mean, to be fair, they have been like working in a factory.
But the thing
is, true. They should be pretty strong.
Conditions
but here's the thing: is like swimming does not use the same muscles that you do on land. Like when you're swimming, it's a completely different situation. So you can be like really fit at like, constructing the things that they're constructing, but like it's not the same thing. So like if you haven't been swimming and before you got in there, I don't know.
Yeah. Oof. But so Cassian Melchi running away. I hope Melchi has a role to play in those last couple episodes here. I hope we're not done with him. He's fun. I like him. Yeah. Let's move on. Let's move on and let's talk about the Mon Mothma stuff.
Davo.
Davo, yeah.
Davo
or Davos, which either or. Depending on where in the world you live.
It's Davo.
Okay, Davo.
Come on, Domo.
Whatever you say, Hanno.
That's good.
He shows up at Mon Mothma's apartment, and he's willing to, move her money around, make it all look legitimate, but there's a cost. Hannah, you said you were a little unsure on this scene. I'll throw it over to you. Tell us what you thought of this interaction between Davo and Mono. That doesn't sound good.
No, yeah, this was an interesting scene. I like understood it like after I finished the episode kind of thing. While it was happening, I was just still in that mode of just like, wait, what did he say? Gonna pay who? Where's your money? What the? And just trying to keep up with what they're saying. And I'm trying to use the very small amount of Mon Mothma we've gotten through this season and piece together what they're talking about. But I found it really interesting, this, this kind of big moment in the conversation where he's like, well, I have a son and I think you have a daughter, they should meet. I thought that was a really interesting concept. And like you said at the start, we've been having an unusual amount of interaction with Mon's family. And we've had Lita kind of around the place quite a lot, and she's been odd recently. She's kind of just like, remember that time she like sidled up to like Tay and Mon Mothma, and she was just like, "Hey, what are you doing? Okay, bye. I'll talk to you later." I was like, "What the hell was that? Like, what are you doing?" So that was a really weird scene. So, yeah, because we're seeing those scenes, there has to be something with the plot storyline that's gonna be important, that we know her family well. So this concept that it's he's posed to Mon to I want to kind of set up our kids to get married. I definitely think this, from our perspective, I think our culture, it's like, that's really shocking. It was just like, oh wow, no way. That's like, and I think Mon had that same reaction. And I think I think what you said before, Dom, as well, is it's kind of, I think it's going to come down to, she has to either choose the rebellion, like she's going to do it and get the money for the rebellion and start the rebellion, or does she not choose it and kind of do what her feelings are telling her and not go through with that because she loves her daughter and she does. So yeah, it was a good scene. I just wish we got a bit more maybe context to it.
Sure. Yeah, that's fair.
So what's fascinating about this is I'm trying to think this through because it's like, from one perspective, you think, well, how does it really hurt anything, to just have the dude meet her? Like, what how is, like, for the amount of stuff that they're gonna get out of it, that's incredible. But so I'm thinking, like, okay, if I was Mon Mothma, what I would do is I would just tell my daughter, hey, this dude's gonna come over, he's bad news, but you just gotta meet him. That's what I would say. But here's the thing. This is why we have seen all these domestic scenes, because they have to explain away why she can't do that. They had to show the conflict that existed between her and her daughter, and how it's very likely that if she introduces this dude to her daughter's going to be rebellious and is going to talk with him.
So, okay, so I have a slightly different read on this. Mm-hmm. Because you say, oh, just invite the dude over, have him meet the daughter, whatever, that's fine.
Yeah.
He may say, I'm not asking for a betrothal. He's asking for a betrothal.
Yeah.
Just that invitation over is ultimately, because remember, he controls her money now. If they go through on this, he controls her money. Mm-hmm. And he controls what the galaxy knows about her money. So if she says, all right, yeah, sure, fine, come over, can meet the daughter. And at the end of the meeting, Mon Mothma says, you know what? Don't think this pairing is right. Mm-hmm. Davo then says, all right, here you go, galaxy. Here is what Mon Mothma is doing. She is stealing from her charity. What nefarious reasons does she have for doing that? And Mon Mothma either has to take this publicity hit and lose her position and thus lose her influence and her ability to help the rebellion, or she has to go, actually, I'm rebelling before she's ready to, and again she loses her position, loses her ability to influence the way she wants to. So I think that's why I think there's no world in which, in my mind at least, there's no world in which she can just say, all right, Davo's son Tomo, he can come on over and meet the meet the girlfriend, meet the daughter. What's Mon Mothma's daughter's name again? I'm blanking.
Leto.
Leto,
yes.
Leto and Tomo. What a shit.
Lita, you can't just meet Lita and then say, all right, that's the end of it.
And that's the thing.
But I do agree that this does also lean into why we've spent so many scenes on 100%. The domestic stuff, because now Mon Mothma has to go to her daughter and she has to say, I need you to do something for me. And it's terrible. It isn't good. And does Mon Mothma try and or Mon Mothma has to choose between, does she go to her daughter and risk her daughter saying, what? No, ew, gross, get away from me, never again. Or does she, she's basically put where she's picking her family or the rebellion. And I think if Mon Mothma's smart, she's going to let her daughter in on the secret and explain to her why she's doing this and why she's asking this to her. But ultimately, Mon Mothma seems like the kind of person where she's going to let Lita choose whether or not she goes along with this. And we're going to find out what Lita actually thinks of.
She's going to die. She's going to die. Lita's going to be dead. There's no way. If Mon Mothma involves her in this, the way the show is, like, there's no way that's going to end well. Like, you can't go that far to the dark side without consequence.
And I feel like it has a strong, like, if she lets Lita in on the secret, I feel like, or even just like tries to make a deal with her, I think it makes it even worse because Lita is just a spiteful little brat who will be like, hey, this will make it worse for you. So I want to marry this guy now because just to spite you. Like,
that's what I'm
I feel like she
about.
might actually go, that's like so it's dangerous all around. And can Lita be trusted? If Mon Mothma wants to say, hey, I'm going to tell you everything. I'm going to let you in the secret. Here's why I've been so absent in your life. Is Lita going to be down with that? Or is she going to be like, I'm going to go talk to Palpatine, tell him all about you?
Man, go right to the top. Yeah, I think, we've talked about Lita being kind of in this sort of rebellious, angsty teenager phase. I can see a version of this where Mon Mothma lets her in on the truth, and Lita all of a sudden wants to go along with it because she's been assuming her mom's hiding something, and I think she just assumes she's having an affair with Tay. But to find out that she's actually doing something for the good of the galaxy, I don't know. I don't know much about teenagers. But maybe that might be an inspirational moment for that.
I don't know if she's protesting against Nerf pants, so we don't know her affiliation. It's just an extremely deep expanded universe.
I was gonna say I feel like somebody did that in the expanded universe. That sounds like a Tales of that sounds like a Legacy of the Force,
exactly.
Fate of the Jedi kind of plot line.
Precisely. Yep, that's what happened. Yep.
I loved. We talked last week about the cinematography of that episode, and we talked a lot about that with the scenes with Deidre. The way this scene was shot was fantastic, with Mon Mothma in the center and Tay and Davos on sort of on either sides of her. The way it was framed up, terrific. And we've given a lot of props to Andy Serkis and Diego Luna. I think Genevieve O'Reilly gets some major props for this episode. The way that sort of controlled anger and disgust and hatred, you can just feel sort of dripping through her performance, even though she's saying all the nice things and smiling. You can tell she just hates that she's in this moment with this dude. She hates that this guy's in her house, and the sooner he can leave and the sooner she can get out of business with him, the better. Now, can she ever get out of business because he's basically the mob? It's a whole other question.
Right. And the fact that I think he's right when he says, like, that's the first untrue thing you said. Like, I think she would be lying if she said she wasn't at least somewhat considering it. Like, it wasn't completely, as much as she thinks it's unthinkable in the moment, it's still like she has to consider it because there's so much at stake. She's weighing the life of her daughter against the entire galaxy. It's a pretty darn weird scales here.
I think what's really interesting about this is also this reminds me of the conversation that she had with Luthen, where she seemed really pissed off about what he did. And I wonder if, one of the reasons why she was looking to get this money moved around was so that, ethics wouldn't have to be compromised in order to fund the rebellion. And what's kind of incredible to me is that she's still in this space where, you know, she thinks that it has to be done a certain way, where you have Luthen just gone at the absolute opposite, where he doesn't care what methods he uses at all, and the people around him don't care because they're looking to just hunt Cassian down and kill him because he knows too much. And basically it's this scene is Mon Mothma being confronted with the fact that even though she's trying to do things her way, it still is going to end up, you know, sacrificing that ethical line. I think it's interesting that she keeps reaching that. This is twice where she's kind of hit against that boundary, where the first time, you know, she has someone go and organize a network and he ends up doing grand theft, and now everybody hates the rebellion, and, you know, there's all these imposed restrictions, and now literally there's people in prison who shouldn't be in prison just because of that. And she understands how terrible that is in the short run. And now she's presented with having to work with the mob and have her daughter marry a mobster. Like, you know, it's interesting that everything that she does ends up turning into, you know, not something that matches up with her expectations, what she thinks fighting the Empire is going to be. It's really interesting.
Yeah,
you go, man.
No, please.
No.
I need to flip a coin.
Well, I was just gonna say with I kind of like that element. I like that we feel like she really is on this like really fine line of this double life. She's this, you know, empirical senator, you know, fronting that she supports the emperor, but then obviously what she's doing in the background, and you feel that like, oh, you know, does he know? Is he going to find out? Or who's going to find out? Or no? I think that tension is purposeful, and I feel like maybe by the end of the season, maybe season 2, we're going to get that released where she is like, there's some kind of event or action, like she's found out some interesting way. She's found out about what she's doing for the rebellion, and they like come to arrest her. But like as she's gonna be arrested, she like escapes, and maybe she like first escapes to Yavin, and that's, you know, we get our first introduction to Yavin or something. Oh no, that can work. Yeah, that can work. So I like that tension, and I feel like it's going to get released somewhere where she finally realizes, like, I can't do this double life anymore. I just have to commit to working in the background, to working for the rebellion, and let this life go. I can't lead this double life anymore.
I think there's a comparison that could be made between Mon Mothma and Kino Loy in this episode. You know, Mon Mothma wants to play by a certain set of rules. And to an extent, she believes in a just galaxy, and that's why she wants to stick to her ethics. But she's eventually going to hit this wall called the Empire, and, you know, she can only try and, you know, climb it so many times before they add more to the top, before she just has to, you know, punch her way through it. Lack of a better term, that'd be quite painful, but you know what I mean. You know, she eventually she's going to have to realize that, you know, she may not like the way Luthen does everything. She may not like the way Saw does everything. But at a certain point, you have to fight more actively, more literally. And she gets to that point in Rogue One. I mean, everybody else in Rogue One is like, no, we can't fight. We won't fight. But then there's that conversation that she has with Bail, and they're like, yeah, no, even though they say this isn't where we're going to wind up, we know this is going to end up in war. So she does reach that point eventually, just not there yet.
You know what? I have a question. I think this might be kind of transitioning into the next thing we're going to talk about anyway. You know what's something I am absolutely not understanding? The whole... There's like this guy that is like a part of the rebellion that the Empire is like staging to kill, or they've already done it or something to kill someone. What am I talking about?
I'm going to say that I don't feel like they've done a good enough job explaining that too. This is the one, most of the things in the show I've tried to figure out, and it's been a little tough in a few spots. But this one, I'm just like, I've just given up, and I'm just going to see what happens. I don't really need to know what's going on.
If you didn't understand it,
I don't understand it either.
So
okay, good.
Anso Creek, Anto Krieger is the guy that Luthen wants Saw to meet.
Anto Krieger.
Anto Krieger. Luthen
We've
wants
got
Saw
Grief
to meet.
Karga, Keith Kurgo, Anton. What? Oh, jeez, man. Use different letters. Sorry. Yes.
Yeah. So Saw wants. Luthen wants Saw to meet Anto because Anto wants to attack some Imperial power station. One of Anto's men got captured by the ISB. This all happened off screen. And Deidre and Pattergaz, or whatever that guy's name is, and Lonnie and all the ISB crew, they're like, we've captured this guy. We know he's works for Anto, and they're planning to attack this power station. What do we do with him? We don't want Anto to know that we're on to him because we want him to attack the power station because we'll be ready and we can wipe him out while he's trying to do this attack. So we'll stage his man's death so that it looks like it was some kind of accident. So they'll just assume that this guy died in an accident. Everything is fine. Let's attack the power station, only so that when Anto and his other men attack the power station, the ISB and the Empire are waiting for them to wipe them out. That is, I think, the storyline there.
So
it's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah.
They're stage pretending to kill the guy, the assistant of the assistant.
The assistant
to Saw.
The assistant to the guy Luthen wants Saw to meet. Saw doesn't like Anto.
Yeah. Sorry. Yes,
also,
right.
there's a whole sequence where
this,
the doctor...
you know how this. Go ahead, Ben. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say the whole sequence where Deidre interrogates him remotely. The guy that the Anto Krieger's got. She says, "Oh, I'm gonna go interrogate remotely." They send Dr. Gorsh or whatever his name is to go torture this guy. This all happens off screen. Then they get the information out of him about Spellhouse, and then they're like, "Okay, what do we do with this guy?" Now we have him.
Spellhouse is the power station, I believe. That's what they want to attack.
Place.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I think
it's like Aldani.
I think for this plotline to have been clearer, because it is all off screen and it is not clear. We need to have either met this pilot or we need to have met Anto Krieger.
Mm-hmm.
Having Luthen and Saw talk about Anto Krieger was not enough, because as the audience, we're just going, "Hey, it's Saw" in that scene. We're not necessarily paying super close attention to
in Andor.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not technically a flaw because they did explain it, but it's just like, that situation, in the first few episodes with the signaling and the shop with Bix and how that's confusing.
The signaling.
What was confusing about that?
How, she said that she was gonna go check on some stuff, but then they didn't actually show her. They just showed the stuff in the background.
No, that was just her cover story.
Yeah, I know, but it was not well shot in a way that
there's
you knew
so many
that
things.
it was happening.
Look, there's so many things in this show that are not in the forefront.
Yeah. But
are you talking about that shot where we look at it's like a bunch of scrap?
Yes.
Yes, I love that you have an issue with that. That's somehow so good. That is so
I don't know
good.
how anybody watches the show once. I don't know how anybody watches one episode once and just gets it all and does it. It's like I'm still discovering stuff with the third and fourth viewings.
Yeah. Anyway, point is this whole this whole Anto Krieger thing should have needs to be laid out much more clearly if it's going to factor into
why is no one more shocked about
episodes.
That? There's Karga, there's Kriego, and Keith Kurgo. Like, what the hell? What the hell?
I think honestly, I don't think it's actually important for you to know this stuff. I think it's there, it's in the background, something's happening, and that there's this information out there that there's going to be this attack by this other rebel guy, and that Lonnie is at risk of being found out. He's trying to warn them. That's what that leads up to. It may go further. I doubt it. I think all that was to set up that Luthen Lonnie scene.
Exactly. I agree.
So Lonnie's the redhead guy.
Yes. The one with the
Yes,
mustache,
okay.
not to be confused
The
with the
mustache
other
guy.
redhead in the prison.
Lonnie
Oh, of course, yeah.
Yeah.
I bet his name is like Kurgi or something.
No, we have Lonnie, and then there's like Johnny. Or- let's talk about the scene between Luthen and Lonnie, L and L. Ben, I'll throw it to you first. What did you think of this scene?
Oh, I mean, freaking incredible. Like some of the best acting and writing we've ever seen in Star Wars. And just ridiculous how they do how well they pulled it off. And another thing, Lonnie. Nowhere, at no point did I suspect this bad extra guy was a plant. Like at no point. Like it just shows how deep this show is, how complex it is, how like nobody. Now I'm suspecting everyone. Now I'm like, is that a background person? Is they a spy or whatever else?
Now
Like,
I know why it's called a
can't help
spy
but, like,
thriller.
wonder.
Until this point, I had no idea.
But like, I genuinely thought, like, oh yeah, that guy's, he's got interesting. It's not, all these people around the table, they all have lines. It's really interesting. They're all interesting characters, and that's cool. But like, I didn't think anything more of like, oh yeah, all of a sudden this guy's gonna come out of nowhere, and he has like one of the most compelling like stories of the entire show, where he's worried about his daughter and his family, and he's a plant, and he's actually a secret rebel. All this kind of stuff, and amazing, and giving Luthen a chance to. It really felt like almost like a therapy session for Luthen, of like he just spills his guts and starts talking about all the stuff, and it's like he is a little offended, I think, that like, oh, what are you sacrificing? He's like, oh, let me tell you, guy, let me tell you, and like he goes all out there and talks about. You hear him talking, and what I thought my first viewing of this is like when he comes on the radio and you're like, no, how's your daughter? I'm like, oh man, this like Luthen is not a good guy. Luthen's a real bad guy. But then like to have him go acknowledge it and go like, yeah, I'm doing all this. I am damned to use the tools of my enemy to defeat them. And just that whole speech, incredible, absolutely incredible. And Stellan Skarsgård again, and you didn't think it could one up itself. You had the earlier in the episode, we had Andy Serkis give just a rousing speech, and you're like, I can't top that. That was the emotional high point of the episode. No.
What is incredible, what you just described, is you had a sonderistic realization, which is so complex that word's only existed for 10 years. What? A sonderistic realization is the realization that something in the background is just as complex as what is in the foreground. And it comes from the German word for special. And
this, I'm seeing why we call this show educational.
That's right. We had to hit our education point so we could get that special education funding from the government. We did it. Yes. So I mean, and that's what's really cool is that that this show does that. Where and I feel like it does that as a rule and not an exception. Like I feel like every single character is treated like they're a complex character in this show, and they're not just a cardboard character meant to reflect a certain way on like foil another character. Like every single character has their own motivations, their own lives, their own angle on things, and you just see that again and again and again in this show, and it's absolutely incredible. So it's not surprising that just one person in the background would become like the key to like everything that's going on. It's like the show almost sets up an environment where that's what you would expect to happen because of the amount that they zoom in with a microscope on just every character and what they care about. And going back to a previous scene as well, they could have just shown the escapees of the prison just taking out the guards. They could have just, and it would have been fine. That would have been for an action story. That would have been fine. They could have just been cardboard characters that are just there as an obstacle to get through. So it's eye candy. But no, instead they had all the officers huddled in a room as through the window they're watching,
so
all the prisoners escape.
That might have been my favorite shot in the entire episode. So good. And I'm pretty sure that was the guy, one of the first officers that we met when Cassian showed up. Who zapped him for the first time. To see that guy be like, "Shh, they'll find us." So satisfying.
Yeah,
so satisfying. Well executed.
And that's what I like about the show so much is that everybody has an angle. You feel everybody's emotion, and that was set up from the very beginning when you had the Cyril versus Andor situation, and you were seeing both sides to that, and everything Andor was going through, and everything that Cyril was going through as well. And so it just set that up immediately that you were going to be seeing all these different perspectives and sides to it, and that continued with Daedra, and now it's continuing with just everything. It permeates the show. It's incredible.
How does the elevator work? Because I was quite confused how that functioned. He was seemingly moving the whole time, but then there was no stop moment. But then suddenly the doors open, and then was Luthen just waiting there? Like, how did he know it was the right floor? Or he had a remote, didn't he, or something?
He was elevator just boring down.
So what I think happened,
right?
Admittedly, this is funnily enough, I think the only episode of the show that I've only watched once, just because of my schedule this week hasn't allowed me to watch it a second time. But it was so burned into my head that I remember most of the details, thankfully. But I'm going to watch this, probably end up watching this the most out of any episode, which is why it's ironic. But I think what happened was there was an earpiece, a vocal transmitter hidden in the elevator. So I think he went in to the elevator and he started talking to Luthen, and they showed him grabbing it out of a panel somewhere.
Yeah, and it was up top.
And then but the thing that confuses me is why did that have to be there? Why couldn't the elevator just stop at a floor and then them have the whole conversation face to face? Like that.
Well, so there is an explanation, because Luthen says to him, if this is a trap, go to floor 215.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
But
that makes sense.
when he doesn't do that, Luthen is somehow controlling the elevator remotely, which is interesting, but whatever.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah, but when Lonnie doesn't go to 215, Luthen knows, okay, it's safe to bring him down to this level.
That makes sense.
Where I'm waiting dramatically, just slightly down the walkway with my cape billowing in the wind of the lower levels of Coruscant.
Yeah, that's smart.
Yeah. It's a good way to set up the scene. But yeah, beautiful scene. I will admit, the first time I watched it and it was revealed that Lonnie was the guy, was the spy, I was a little bit like, really? That guy? The background man, that's who we're going with? I sort of thought, it might have been more sort of dramatic if it had been the Tarkin looking dude that's been working with Deidre the whole time. Like if it had been someone who was closer to the primary character, just that might have heightened the drama a little bit. But on a repeat viewing, I liked how sonderous that Sontaran this reveal was. I like the fact that it's someone in the background, because of all the reasons that's been laid out. It's sort of just, it makes the whole tapestry of the show so much richer, that there's this guy who's just been like, oh yeah, that guy, every time he shows up, and you're not really thinking about him. Turns out, really important dude, which is the whole idea of the rebellion at this point, or a lot of the characters that we've been following.
I always kept looking at that guy and Lonnie and thinking he looks like a rebel, because a lot of the rebels had mustaches. so I always thought he actually looked like a rebel. And so it was actually kind of funny. that if it looks like a rebel and it quacks like a rebel,
It has a
maybe
mustache like a rebel.
Yeah, you know what? I really think, Ben, if you grew a mustache, you would really.
Ooh.
I think you could pull off a Lonnie.
If
Lonnie
only I
cosplay
could.
for Celebration
if only I
London.
could.
you got to commit.
I'm gonna have to
okay?
get a
You give
fake
up
red
too
mustache.
early. Like, okay,
Ben, there are celebrations in what, May? April?
Yeah.
April. So
Start
there are
growing it
6
now.
months between now and Celebration London. If you started now, you could have a satisfactory mustache by then. And
you
the
gotta
only
commit.
problem with that is this is all I can grow. Okay, this is it. This is what you're looking at.
But you gotta
give
you
it
gotta
6
keep it
months.
Going. You gotta
Give
let
it 6
continue.
months.
Because here's the thing. Okay, I'll let myself be an example. This is why I did that, because I think I play 5D chess. So as you can see right now, my mustache is like really patchy, and you can see the skin under it and everything. But you know what it turns into because you were here 2 weeks ago when I had the full beard. This is if I just let this grow for a few months, it becomes that. So you can't just give up when it's just a little hair here and there. You just gotta you gotta let them grow for months and months and months, and then the other ones come in under it. And then
Okay. I'm not gonna shave. I'm not gonna shave for a week, and then you will see how pathetic my hair growing abilities are.
This is a week
A
for
month.
me. Like
a month, Benjamin.
it's gotta be a month. Yeah.
Oh man.
No shave
like a
December.
hobo.
Let's go.
My favorite thing in this podcast ever is when I just kind of say something a little off topic and a little random, and you guys just run with it. I don't have to say
It's like
anything else.
dropping a bomb.
Yeah, like,
I mean,
what about this one?
But you say, oh yeah, Ben could cosplay Lonnie, and we all realize, yeah, he could. Yeah. This, you get him one of those, get him a cape, and grow him a mustache.
I think it's maybe does you have the same part as him or something? The part is the same.
Definitely.
Your hair's the same or something.
Yeah,
very
I want to look this up now.
Yeah.
I'm going to
Think
deep
about
dive
this.
into Lani now.
I'm curious. Do you think Lonnie would wear a top hat?
I can see it.
Absolutely would.
Yes.
Absolutely
He's a wholesome
would.
gentleman who cares about his family.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, some thoughts are gonna have to be had about this.
So suddenly Ben's like, you know what? I don't really want to go to Celebration next year. It's fine. It's fine. You guys can do your British pancake party
Just
without
go.
me. It's fine.
Somebody's got to bring the pancake.
I love it.
Yeah, I'll skip it.
You're too deep into this now, just like Lonnie.
Yeah,
You're very committed.
yeah. There's no escape. I did like that about the conversation between the two of them. That like Lonnie's trying to get out of the rebellion and wants to get out of the fight, and Luthen won't let him. He won't let him. He's like,
yeah, that's kind of rough.
Yeah, it was tough, but Luthen. I like his whole thing. I need all the heroes I can get. It's a great line. It kind of, it alludes to the kind of grander scale of Star Wars that we're used to operating in and all of that. But he's also kind of right that, there's going to come a point where no one can sit this one out, right? Like, Lonnie's already done the most difficult thing, which is choose a side. He's gotten in the fight. Now he's just got to stay. And, it's going to be tough. It's not going to be easy. He's got more things to worry about and care about. And the fact that, he's got a family and a child now, than he did 6 years ago when he got involved. But, it's one of those things. He thinks the best thing he can do for his daughter is to get out of the fight and just protect her. But really the best thing he can do for his daughter is to stay in the fight and give her a better galaxy than the one he lives in.
It's great that this show continues to kind of provide that juxtaposition between the characters that want to run and hide and the characters that want to fight. Like we already had that with Cassian, and now we're having it with him. But gosh, just imagine, thinking, being a wholesome gentleman and realizing that you could save a bunch of people's lives who are about to get lit up by the Empire, and then being told you're more important than that. We'll just let them die. Like that's a mind curve and a half right there.
Oh yeah,
like,
Luthen does not Luthen has a heavy conscience. There's a lot of things weighing on. He says as much in this episode. he's kind of not letting anybody else have an easy conscience either. He's letting Lonnie know, like, these are the stakes we're fighting with, and yeah, I'll sacrifice 10 men to save an entire galaxy, of course. But it's I guess the worst math equation you can do. It's the trolley problem. Will you save 10 men or save the galaxy? What are you gonna do?
Or is it 50 feet in front of the between of the first and second runner after the finish line?
Yes. Ben just pissed out.
He's gone.
Ben just left the call.
I'm still trying to understand you, Ben.
Don't worry, I'm still trying to figure out me too.
This is why you got to grow a mustache, because then we will understand you. Yes. I will say, Lonnie, terrific mustache. Also in great facial hair in this episode. Davos's sideburns. Those were pretty spectacular. Pretty sharp. Yeah. That dude had a great look just in general. So there we go.
I like his little suit thing, outfit. Yeah.
Good stuff. What else? Anything else we want to bring up? I feel like we've covered a good portion of the episode, a good chunk of what's in there.
Well, I just want to say, we've touched upon it kind of throughout the entire episode because it's like so important to all of it. But I just want to dedicate a specific paragraph of speech to Stellan Skarsgård's performance specifically, and say that I actually that was more moving to me than the Andy Serkis stuff, which was amazing. But personally, I thought the Andy Serkis stuff got me pumped up, but I just flipped out over the Stellan Skarsgård stuff. There was so much emotion and complexity to that one. And it just was such an amazing payoff after kind of doing a character study of him for his character for so many episodes. So I was definitely out of my mind watching that. That was just absolutely an incredible way to end the episode.
Yeah, spectacular. I feel like we've been praising the performances all the way through for this series, but this episode just hammered home just how good a cast we've got with this show. The other scene we haven't really talked about because I don't really know what there is to say about it. It was just sort of a little bit of a check-in update, a check-up, if you will, with Marva. The doctor shows up to check it, to look at her. She's not taking her pills.
Yeah.
Cinta is watching from afar. Looks like she might be ready to get involved and let Marva know that she's not crazy. The Rebel Alliance is watching her on her doorstep. But then there was another shot. It was a close-up of somebody else in the crowd there, and I'm not sure if it's just a shot of just some random person watching the whole thing go down,
not.
Or if it is that a guy? Is that somebody we should know?
That's ISB.
That's the ISB guy.
That's what I was expecting.
Because they said they have this, because Daedra specifically said they had people on Marva, that were watching her. So.
And that dude looked familiar too. He looked like I was looking at him I feel like I've seen you before, but I can't place where.
Kel Kigu. It's just gonna be his name's gonna be exactly the same as all the other names.
Well, you know what they have to do, Hannah, is they have to start giving the characters really original names that stand out, like Timima.
Yeah, I think that's what the circle we've taken, haven't we? We've gone through all the weird
Where's
stuff.
Bob with 3 Bs?
Yes.
Running the social media for Disney, obviously.
No, that's Bob with 2 Bs. There's Bob, and then there's Bobby, and there's Bobo.
Bob has 2 Bs.
Where would the third B be in Bob? Would it be at the beginning or the end?
I was gonna say there would be 2 BBs at the end. Bob BB-8, but I don't know. Now you got me thinking. Is it spot?
Is it Bubba Bob or Bobaba?
Someone asked B2 Emo. He knows.
I'm ending this.
This whole time. B2 Emo's been talking normally, and this is just how things are spelled.
I suppose. Yeah. I suppose. All right. I think it's time to move on. Ben, do you know what time it is?
No, I have
do you know
no
what time it
idea.
is?
No
well,
idea.
we've reached that point in the show where we've kind of wound down the discussion, but it's that time. You know what time it is. It's time for Connection Corner. Connections in the corner with Ben. It's Ben's Connection Corner. Do.
How's it going, everybody?
Ben's Connection Corner is filmed in front of a live studio audience.
Where did that come from?
If you're not,
my god!
if you're not watching, you definitely heard it. But if you're not watching, you gotta come see the new official Ben's Connection Corner intro. I was sent an audio file by a friend of the show and one of my oldest friends, Dan Duquette, maker of the Ben Hart, the Star Wars guy soundtrack.
Oh my god, that
And-
Dan, I love you and I hate you sometimes.
He had sent me the Ben's Connection Corner, the musical version of it there that you just heard, which we then paired with an animation that was created by another listener of the show, at Kenobi's EOP on Twitter, who created the little animation of Ben dancing around for Ben's Connection Corner.
Can we see it again? I want to see it again.
Let's see
that
it
was
again.
So good.
Let's take all the banners out. All right, it's time for Connection Corner. Connections in the corner with Ben. It's Ben's Connection Corner. Do.
How's it going, everybody?
Ben's Connection Corner is filmed in front of a live studio audience. that was my addition to it.
Lack of timing and rhythm makes it so good. Makes it so good. Oh, jeez, that's so good. I love it. Is that going to be available on Spotify? I want that on Spotify.
It should be. So thank you at Kenobi's EOP for the animation, and thank you, Dan, at let's see, what's Dan's Instagram handle these days, as at Danny Dukes, Dukes with 2 S's on Instagram. Thank you both for your contributions. It was very fun. That's fun.
Brilliant.
And
That's awesome.
Ben, you've opened up a can of worms here with this segment. I hope you don't think it's going away after Andor, because
if you've noticed, the connections have dwindled in this show. There haven't been near as many. Once we got past the few shots of Luthen's shop, it's been kind of all downhill from there. Ben's Connection Corner is on life support, but it's continuing to go, and we're gonna keep going.
And it's going to continue, and it's going to continue through the Bad Batch and the Mandalorian season 3, and the Acolyte, Skeleton Crew, Ahsoka.
I think, guys,
all the shows.
I think your good buddy Ben Hart here has just decided he needs to have an early retirement from podcasting. It's been a good run, guys. I don't know. All right, let me review my notes here. Let's get this over with. Let's get this damn segment over with. So I swear this was in a previous episode, but some people pointed this out, and I noticed the first time I noticed it was in this episode. Padme's headdress, the one she wears to Naboo in Attack of the Clones, it's like a halo, like a silvery halo thing. That's in his shop. It's in Luthen's shop.
Wow.
On a thing. In the one scene, it's hard to miss because I think him and what's her name stand right next to it, like when they're talking. So or walk right by. It's pretty prominent. And I was actually looking at the shop to see if looked like some things may have changed because some time has passed and some things, and there was some dragon art in there that reminded me of some of the stuff in Palpatine's office in the prequels, which is kind of weird.
That's where he got it.
So who knows? But I don't know how Luthen Rail got a hold of part of Padme Amidala's extensive wardrobe, but there you go. It looks like the same thing. It looks like to be the exact prop, which is really cool. This one, I feel like some of these are. I'm like, is this really a deep cut? People, I'm the only person noticing this. I'm going to say it anyway. The microphone that's
Oh yeah.
Andy speaks into is pretty much the exact same thing that Han both speaks into and shoots in A New Hope.
Boring conversation anyway.
So
I did love that when he leaned in to talk to the microphone and it was that. I was like, oh, that's whoever designed this set. They knew what they were doing.
That's smart. That's good.
And it's also, again, not on screen that much. Just kind of like you see it from, the outside perspective. But you're like, I know what that looks like.
I'm okay. How are you? I love that. I love that.
And that's about it. That's about all the notes I have. Honestly, I know there was. I'll tell you this: there was at least one, if not a couple, of alien species down in the underworld. That I was like, I've seen that before. For the life of me, I don't know where I've seen it before, but I know I've seen it before. So, anybody can help out, help a brother out, and figure out what's.
Yeah, just finish up. Finish.
Finish,
Ben.
Finish the thought.
I thought you were gonna play it. I thought you were gonna play it.
I'm waiting for you to finish so we can play it. If we can play you out when you're done.
Well, I'm finished. Play it.
All right. Well, that concludes another edition of Ben's Connection Corner. Connections in the corner with Ben. It's Ben's Connection Corner. Do.
How's it going, everybody?
Ben's Connection Corner is filmed in front of a live studio audience.
I want to know where you got the shot of all the people clapping. That's so good.
Yeah. I was assembling that this afternoon or this evening before the show, and I was just sitting there giggling. I was so entertained by the creations of our listeners. Amazing stuff. Speaking of listeners, got a couple of super chats to get to. First up, we've got one from Jesse. Jesse says, "I just hope Kino doesn't die from drowning. I want him to make it until mid-season 2. At least." And we did talk about.
You know what's going to happen?
Oh,
yeah. Here we go. You know what's going to happen?
Time.
Hey, he's going to jump. The start of the next episode, we're going to see him. He actually jumped into the water, and he starts to drown like Samwise Gamgee started to drown in. Was that Two Towers? Was it? No, that was Fellowship, and he starts to drown. And then we'll get the exact same scene where we see Cassian's arm like grasp him and like pull him like toward, and I don't know. No, we didn't see him running off with him, so I don't know if that could work.
When that's funny because that's what I thought when he was telling Cassian that he couldn't swim. I thought Cassian was gonna say like jump anyway and I'll go save you. Like, but then Cassian
like
bumped off by somebody else.
Yeah, there's a shot of Kino in the water and he's struggling and he's saying and there's this giant figure with long arms and tall reaches down and picks him up, and it's Snoke.
Ben, look at your sticker. Look at your sticker.
That was
now.
good.
You
put me in there. I like that.
I like that. I have the one theory that doesn't suck.
Next up, we've got one from Joel. Joel says, history has shown time and again that in Revolution, you need the Luthans, Saws, and Andors to do what needs to be done so that the Luke's, Hans, and Leia's can be the heroes who get the glory in the end.
Definitely.
Yeah, that is very much on point with the theme of this whole series and Rogue One as well.
I love that Luthen includes in his speech that like he specifically says like, yeah, I'm getting no gratitude for this. And it's just like literally we are seeing this story play out. We know the end game. We know the fruits of Luthen's labor. We just met Luthen. We're just finding out who he is. That's just a testament to like how thankless his job is, that, no one's gonna, very few people, if any, are actually gonna know who he was and what he did.
It's true. It's true. Next up, we've got from Joel. I feel like unlike Kenobi, Andor is less a true character study of the main lead, and the main lead is more like our eyes to a much wider story.
It's a great way to put it. Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah. It's also, Andor is twice as many episodes as Kenobi. So I think we're seeing Cassian, the same amount of story with Cassian be spread out over twice as much time. So it doesn't feel as concentrated as Obi-Wan Kenobi did. But I think we are certainly getting a significant arc from Cassian, much in the same way we got one from Obi-Wan. But the added amount of episodes allows us to also get this look at the wider galaxy through Cassian's eyes. Obi-Wan's story is very focused on him, Anakin, and Leia. And other characters come in and out of that. They intersect with that and they weave in and out. But ultimately the story is about those three. It's about the Skywalker family and their weird uncle.
I think it's completely about marketing. Like, this show is definitely, putting a lot of weight on many different characters. And I think Andor is one of the ones we see the most of, but and especially kind of how the show starts with so much of an origin story for him. It makes sense that, he'd be like the lead, quote unquote. But I really do think that, it just makes more sense as a pitch to say, well, let's take this, lead character from one of the most popular Star Wars films and make a show about him. Like, I think that kind of makes sense from a back end point of view and like a marketing point of view. But like, ultimately, like, this is a rebellion show. It's about the rebellion. It's not about Andor. There are things happening that are outside the scope of him in this show.
Yeah. And finally, from Joel, I think Mon will sacrifice her family life, and that's how she ends up being the full-time public leader of the Alliance and the New Republic. Definitely a possibility. Definitely a possibility, but this show has lived in the nuance, in the gray area, and I suspect there will be a lot of nuance to what happens next week. And I think one way she can do that, as we talked about, is by bringing her daughter into the fold. I don't know if I don't know if Perrin really has a place in all of this. He doesn't seem all that interested in it. He still seems like he might be the guy that betrays our heroes at some point. But I feel like maybe Mon Mothma won't be as present as a parent as she would like to be. But I think if Lita is allowed to know the truth, then at least she'll understand.
Or maybe Perrin is maybe if they have the introduction like Davos wants, maybe Perrin is the one that puts his foot down. He's like, I ain't no way my daughter's marrying this kid. Like, and he's the one that causes an issue.
Possibly, yeah.
I like that. Yeah,
could happen. He does know Davos. That is stated in the episode. They know each other, so he either loves the guy and is like, yeah, that sounds great, or he knows what kind of guy he is. And
my assumption is that if he plays a role in anything, he's not gonna what's gonna happen is there's gonna be the meeting and Davos' son is gonna show up, and then Mon Mothma is gonna want Lita to kind of play along with this, but she's not intending her to marry him. But then Perrin's gonna go in and be like, "Oh, this is a great opportunity for us," and then he's gonna actually put it in Lita's ear that she should go through with it, and then Mon's gonna end up kind of biting off more than she can chew because she gets an unexpected consequence to what she did because she's trying to play things too fine, but then he's actually trying to make the thing happen that she doesn't want to happen. That's my guess if it goes that way.
Anything is possible at this point. Well, I think now it's we'll go around the table one final time, give some final thoughts and scores out of 10 for One Way Out. And Ben, this time I will throw it to you first. Final thoughts and score out of 10 for episode 10.
Like I said, one of the best Star Wars to ever Star War in this episode. Seriously though, this was amazing. What an incredible achievement this episode is. What, like I said, it builds on what came before. It is this giant just sigh of relief for all these characters, but also heartbreaking at the same time, and getting to learn more about all these characters, even characters we didn't know were even characters. It's like, I didn't know Lonnie was going to be a character in this show. I didn't know he was going to have like, a part, but like, he's so compelling. And, all that is to say that like this show continues to surprise me, continues to wow me in regards to how far it goes with the details and the amount of quality they put through every inch of this. Every part of the script, every line is so articulate and so great. Yeah, and I'm the only bad part about it is this: the episode was too short, wasn't long enough, and also there's 2 episodes left. And I'm not comfortable with that. I'm not comfortable with the fact that next week is the things, and then there's 12 more episodes. And I'm like, I want this show to go on forever. It's just not fair. Life is not fair. But I will say that I will give this episode a 10.5 out of 10.
10.5 out of 10 from Ben in the corner. I like it. Hannah, what about you? Final thoughts, the score out of 10.
Yeah, I really love this episode. I think they really were spot on with the action kind of sequence, the breakout scene. I think there was, a lot of tension building the previous episodes. And I think that was very satisfactorily, I'm just going to go with that word, released. And I think, we got some really fantastic dialogue and speeches from Cassian, from Kino, and, especially from Luthen. Really love this episode, except for those couple of pockets of confusion I had with some of the details. But I'm going to give this a pretty happy 9 out of 10.
9 out of 10. Losing a mark for the pockets of confusion. Excellent turn of phrase there. Chris, your final thoughts and score out of 10 for One Way Out.
Yeah, this episode was absolutely incredible, and it wasn't just incredible, but it was incredible how it was incredible. It was incredible at what aspects were the incredible parts of this episode, and that's just like the dialogue, the writing, the performance. I mean, that's what I was saying to myself the entire time of watching this. It's just like the writing of this show is so good, and so it's incredible. And I would say that I've only seen it once, but I think this might be, as just a single episode, the best episode of any Star Wars series ever.
Ooh.
I say that as a single episode because it's hard for me. The Siege of Mandalore always, as a grouping of episodes, will be, that is as close to perfection, I think, as you get in that format. But I think it's just one episode by itself. This might be the best episode ever because it is so incredibly transcendent of everything else around it. And it just pushes Star Wars into a new zone that just I don't think it's ever quite fully been in before, where just every aspect of storytelling is just clicking at that level, to the point that it's like it's an afterthought that there's an amazing action sequence. It's an afterthought that there's this just huge expansive prison with just amazing cinematography and effects and set building to show the whole thing. Like you don't even think about that because you're just thinking about Andy Serkis talking over an intercom. Like it's absolutely incredible. So I've been waiting to do this for a while. And people may have noticed, have been watching the show for a while. There was a rating that I never got to with Book of Boba Fett because I never felt like that show got to that level of quality.
Oh no!
So yeah,
I know where this is going.
You know exactly where this is going.
Not again.
This is the Diablo episode that I've been waiting for. The hottest level of Taco Bell sauce that translates to an 11 out of 10. This is an 11. This is beyond perfect. This is overwhelmingly good.
I hope that the fact that you got to use that rating means that we have reached the end of the Taco Bell ratings. And we can bury this bit where it belongs.
Oh, I love it.
Oh man. For me, I gave it away off the top. 10 out of 10. Love this episode. What more is there to say? I feel like we've said it all. The acting, the writing, the cinematography, the sets, the music, the locations, the costuming, the sound design, all of it was just done to perfection in this episode, and it was a beautiful way to wrap up an arc, and it delivered something that this show has done time and again, but it did it, I think, with the most force. It has a message. It has a point of view. It has something that it's saying, and it's something that Star Wars has tried to say before and always come up just a bit shy, in my opinion. And this episode delivered on it at last. So, yeah, 10 out of 10 from me. And I think with that, we can begin to wrap things up for this week.
Wow. So I guess then, because of Ben's 0.5 rating, our average is over 10 between all of us. That's incredible. That's the first time that's ever happened, I think. It's super awesome. Well, that'll wrap it up for this episode of the Star Wars Underworld podcast. Of course, we'll be back same time, same place next week, discussing the penultimate, sadly, episode of season 1 of Andor. And again, to echo what Ben said just a moment ago, like, every episode of this show, I just keep coming back to, this is supposed to be 5 seasons, and I get so sad that decision was made, because this is sustainable. Like, they could sustain this for that long.
If it could have been 3 seasons, even 3 seasons,
more.
one more than 2, just one more than 2.
Is it too late to change that? I think they've already shot season 2.
They're just getting started on season 2.
Okay,
so
let's change this.
They could change it.
Yeah, let's make 5 seasons of this. This is the best. This is the best thing. So let's have more of the best thing. But in the meantime, between shows at the SWU is where you can find us on social media. Ben, thank you so much for hosting as well. I did that.
This was a pleasure as always, and I don't know if you can even hear me because my internet's just going through the whole thing this year.
It was made better by the fact that there was a slight delay, and you were slightly frozen. So when Chris went to you, you were frozen on this image of you with your eyes shut.
Oh,
and it looked like you were having a little snooze, and you just weren't expecting.
Like break time. Oh, I love that.
Oh boy.
I was not expecting it either.
But yeah. Okay. I'm not gonna say much. I'm just gonna say, great episode of Andor. Do more, guys. You're about to shoot season 2, so just keep going. Just keep going forever, please.
Keep going.
Let's go. At Ben Hart with no E. And the first person I would like to thank, Dominic, thank you for hosting.
Yeah, it was my pleasure. It was my pleasure. I didn't realize I had time for a little nap there while you were outroing Ben first. Usually I wait to start my nap until I'm done while you're outroing the other two.
I let the autopilot take over. It took me too long to find the SWU banner, and as I was finding it, I said, Brain, just take this one.
Yeah.
Do whatever you want. You know how to do this.
What are we talking about? What on earth are we talking about? Well, I have completely lost this conversation.
You and everybody else, honestly. Great fun being on the show this week, as always. Great fun discussing Andor, and I very much apologies to the cast of The Acolyte, because I would have liked to have talked about you guys, but we'll get to you guys in a couple of weeks. One final thought on Andor that I didn't get to. Anson Krigo, he joins the ranks of Uncle Harlow as the characters that have been spoken about a lot off screen, but we've yet to actually see them. So perhaps Anto Krieger, Uncle Harlow, same person.
Definitely. 100%.
Can't wait to do all this again next week.
Both of them are Darth Plagueis, because we haven't seen him either.
Yeah, no. Those guys are actually Snoke. We think it's going to be Kino because it's Andy Serkis, but it's actually Uncle Harlow and Anton Krieger combined to be one person.
That's why Snoke is so tall. It's those two guys in a cloak.
Yeah, they're standing on each other's shoulders.
On his shoulders.
That explains everything. The sequels are explained now.
That's why he wears that gold robe. It's to cover it all. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the two guys.
All makes sense.
God. Oh my God.
Hannah, thank you so much for hosting as well.
It is my pleasure. It is such a good time having a laugh and debriefing it all with you. And I'm enjoying that I'm having a bit more of a positive spin on the show now. In those early episodes, I was always quite critical of some things. But yeah, and I really love the show. And it's a good time. Thank you for a great show.
You can follow Hannah at the Raeside, and make sure you check out the Raeside on YouTube. For those of you listening, that's Raeside. And you can follow Dominic as well. Dominic J25 is his handle. You can follow me at Seek3PO, SEEK3PO. We want to thank everybody for leaving a super chat. We have lots of fantastic super chats this week, and thanks everybody who is a channel member and supports us financially. As always, make sure you subscribe if you're new or you're watching us without subscribing. What are you doing if you're doing that? And please leave us a review on any podcast apps that you're listening to us on. We'll be back with another episode next week, but until then, for Hannah and Ben, Dominic, and all the other fantastic contributors we have here at the Star Wars Underworld, my name is Chris, and may the Force be with you.
Roar!
Man, Akbar is competition.
Ben's Connection Corner. Connections in the corner with Ben. It's Ben's Connection Corner. Do.
How's it going, everybody?
Ben's Connection Corner is filmed in front of a live studio audience. It's a wrap.